Hi, this is Reverend Jim Ernsten. Let's move into meditation. So, I invite you to find that relaxed space. You may be seated in your chair, in your sofa, wherever you are. If it feels right, close your eyes. Take that breath and relax. As we inhale that idea, that love within our nature, and we exhale anything that no longer serves us. We allow our shoulders to relax. We allow that chair just to hold us up at this moment. And we feel that this is our natural state at this time. This idea we are divine, this idea of our Christ nature, this one of expectation within our world. And we breathe. We focus on that divinity within, that oneness within our world that we belong to, where we know our consciousness becomes one with divinity, one with the universe. A consciousness that knows that worldly circumstances do not dictate our reality, for we are spiritual in nature. Our reality is based on that quality of love and of goodness. This is our reality. And this chance, this act of turning within at this time is a connection for us, a way of opening up our heart. And it can make all the difference in our day. It can make all the difference in our world. I also know that Divine Spirit is here with me now. That there is never a time or a place that I am separated from that divine presence. And I am part of that oneness through my Christ nature, through that presence in my life, that co-creative nature. I am part of that divine presence. I rise up from that animal nature, that unbridled colt, and into my full Christ presence. This is my reality. This is the truth of my being. And I take another breath. I notice that inhale, the slight pause in between, and that release of the exhale. The inhale, the pause, and the exhale. I allow that space within these breaths, that slight pause, to be filled with that realization of my Christ nature that divinity within. That's what floods into that space, into that silence. And I continue to receive that knowing with each breath. So let's take a minute or two, practice this awareness of our own Christ nature as we move into silence. And as we begin to come out of this silence, we claim that idea of our Christ nature, that Christhood, and we know it to be ours. Our spirit expands with this knowledge each and every breath we take throughout our day, throughout our lives. We know that we are one with the divine. We have created a life that cannot be contained by boundaries. We are blessed, blessed deeply with this knowledge. If you haven't already, begin to open your eyes, bring that awareness back into this room once again, nice and gentle, just acknowledging the physical world around us. And we can notice that feeling in our heart at this time, this calm, this peace, this knowing. And we can take it with us for the rest of the day. We can take it with us for the rest of the week and know that we can always come back to the space. And we know that it is so. Namaste.
Well, greetings everyone at Unity in Madison. My name is Reverend Lisa Herklotz, and I'm so happy and honored to be here on Palm Sunday to share with you this Sunday message. As you know, we have been stepping through the season of Lent, which is the 40 days leading up to Easter. Easter, we know, is the commemoration and celebration of that traditional Christian story of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. But it also represents a journey we take of an inner spiritual unfoldment and evolution as we release the beliefs in limitation and separation, and we awaken to and begin to fully express our own eternal Christ nature. Palm Sunday, it's a special day. It's a story that opens up in chapter 21 in the book of Matthew in the Christian scriptures. And here we find Jesus working with his disciples in preparation for riding into Jerusalem for the celebration of Passover. Now, Passover, as many of you may know, it's one of the most important Jewish traditions, commemorating the events of Moses liberating the Jewish people from Egypt. Metaphysically, it represents moving from a mental state of bridging from one old mortal state of consciousness and entering into a new spiritual state of consciousness. So, literally moving from a state of mind in belief and lack and separation, which enslaves us, to fear, and entering into a spiritual awareness, which liberates us and sets us free. Now, in this story, Jesus is instructing the disciples where to go find a donkey and her colt being her offspring. And he says, bring the colt to him. And if anyone asks why they need it, tell them that the Lord has need of it. Now, when I'm reading stories like this, and it includes such interesting kind of odd little details like this, it tells me there must be some significance and meaning behind that. And that's what I'd like to explore with you today. So I'm going to begin by turning to The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore, co-founder of our Unity movement, which gives us the metaphysical meanings behind many of these places and objects and words. So let's start with Jerusalem because Jerusalem is the destination. This is where they're heading to. And in the Revealing Word, it says Jerusalem means habitation of peace. Habitation. Habitation, it's a place that we reside, that we live from. So this is a place where we reside in peace. It's the spiritual center of consciousness. It goes on to say another metaphysical meaning of Jerusalem is the city of David. And this symbolizes the great nerve center just back of the heart. And it's said that from this point, spirit sends its radiance to all parts of the body. But we can also look at that from a broader perspective of in consciousness, spirit is at the center. And from that center, it radiates this essence of love and of light to all parts of our consciousness. So Jesus is getting ready to ride into Jerusalem, and this is really signifying a progressive unfoldment in time as the Revealing Word says, the animal forces of humans are lifted into the spiritual plane of mastery, purity, and peace. So we're really talking about a journey of transformation. But why a cult? Why did Jesus pick a cult to ride in? And there's a couple of interesting reasons. Historically, he even says in the scriptures, this is in fulfillment of the prophecy that's written in the Hebrew Bible. But it was also known that in these biblical times, it was common for kings or people of importance to arrive by procession riding on a donkey, because that donkey symbolized peace. So when somebody rode into a city or into a location on a donkey, they were showing that they were coming with peaceful intentions. And certainly we can say Jesus was a reminder of the coming of peace, and Jerusalem being the habitation of peace, the place where peace resides. Now, looking at it from a more metaphysical perspective, the cult typifies the animal part of our human consciousness. This is the part of our consciousness that is ruled by our human desires and our human fears and our human limitations. And we find that the characteristics of the cult are one of stubbornness, persistency, and endurance. Interesting now, isn't that? Stubbornness, persistency, and endurance. I don't know about you, but I can see where those qualities may reside within me. But the important thing to know about these is that to ride these means to make them obedient to one's will. And whose will are we aligning with? That becomes the important part of this story in this scenario. Because the purpose of Jesus riding the colt into Jerusalem portrays to us the mastery of the Christ consciousness over the animal nature and its manifestation. This is what's meant by carrying the Christ. We carry the Christ as part of our essential nature. And our human nature comes under the influence and mastery of our Christ or spiritual nature as we arrive into Jerusalem, as we come into our center of spiritual awareness. We are getting there as we become aligned with, our will aligns with that of our own inner Christ. Now, it's interesting to note that the cult represents our collective, unbridled, untried, and impulsive humanity. And where do we see that happening in our world? Where do you see a sense of unbridledness and untested or an impulsive human nature taking the forefront? I mean, look in our own personal lives where we are experiencing conflict and discomfort or um, any kind of lack of peace. Look out in our world as we see things manifesting through social injustice and through wars and through the destruction of our planet. This is our unbridled, untried, and impulsive humanity that is not under the alignment of or in influence of the inner Christ nature. But there's an interesting thing because further in that scripture, remember, Jesus told them, if they ask you why, tell them the Lord has need of them. And what this really tells us is that our human nature, it's not to be crushed or destroyed. It's not even to be discarded. It's something that's needed, but it's needed to come into the service of the Christ nature because we're meant to function in this world under the direction of our own spiritual nature. So it's not that our human nature, or even our animal nature is wrong or bad or evil. It is misled until we can bring it back into alignment with our own divinity. And then all that we are as human beings, when we are fed, nurtured, guided, and inspired by our divine being, by our spirit, then we bring all the goodness and love of God into manifestation in our lives and in our world. And we need that now. We need that now. And this leads me to the final part of this story, which is Hosanna. Hosanna. Jesus rides that donkey in with his disciples following into Jerusalem, and he is met by the throngs of people who are filled with joy as they lay down the garments and the branches of the palms as a way of paying homage to and joyful obedience to this Christ come into our lives. It's a joyful acknowledgement that our error thoughts are gone and we are now aligned to our own divinity. And we honor this great historical event every time we invite in and place our Christ nature in the position to rule our hearts and our minds. So where do you find yourself in this story? Where do you find yourself on this journey, this great transformation. Have you found yourself called forth to leave the safety and comfort of your current abode, your comfort zone? Maybe you've been feeling a sense of unease or unrest that comes from the uncertainty of starting a journey into the unknown. Perhaps you find yourself digging in your heels, feeling a little bit of that obstinance, that stubbornness, and yet being pulled by a persistent and enduring feeling and longing for something more deeply peaceful, more fulfilling, and more loving. Do you ever feel you couldn't possibly be worthy to carry the Christ? Perhaps our lives have been unruly and undisciplined, or, oh my goodness, downright messy. I can look at my life and see where I've made mistakes. And who am I to carry the Christ? And yet, when we remember that this Christ, it's not something apart from you or me. It is that which lives within each one of us. And it's calling us to surrender to its loving guidance and divine will so it can carry us to our Jerusalem, to our own spiritual center. Every one of us is called to celebrate our worth, our own Christ nature, and to bring all that we are meant to bring in the goodness and light to this world. Palm Sunday, I celebrate and I honor and I acknowledge the living presence of Christ within you. And so it is. Thank you and namaste.